welcome to My Security TV, our Tech and Sec Weekly. My name is Chris Cubbage. I'm the director with My Security Media, and this is somewhat of a special episode. We're crossing between Sydney, Australia, and Switzerland and Vienna. We're going to be joined by Algirde Pipakaite. I've got to say her name correctly. She's the lead strategic initiatives at the Centre for Cybersecurity with the World Economic Forum. So it's great to be crossing over to Switzerland. And this came, we're not really going to go into the great detail about the cyber attack on the water treatment plant in Florida, USA, but this was the sort of the spark of this discussion as to these types of cyber attacks on critical infrastructure. So looking forward to speaking to Algirde. Algirde Pipakaite, I hope I'm saying her name correctly, and I'm sorry, I'll just use the Australian accent as my excuse. Algirde, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and you sound like a true Lithuanian.
Very nice. And I don't. My Swiss isn't quite as good as my German, and actually my kids have dual Swiss citizenship, so we do have a link there. Algirde, we're definitely going to start with your role with the World Economic Forum and the Centre of Cybersecurity. Interesting title too, in terms of lead for strategic initiatives. Sounds like you've got a pretty easy job there, just looking at the strategic sort of overview of what's going on. Yeah, tell us about maybe your day job and your sort of key role there at the World Economic Forum.
Of course. Well, first of all, Chris, definitely thank you for having me. It's a big shoes to fill after Michelle Price, that's for sure. She's a good friend of the forum and the Center for Cybersecurity, so it's definitely a pleasure. If you want to swap jobs as well, you're more than welcome to come and lead the strategic initiative.
Yeah.
What that means is actually listening very carefully to our partners, our public sector organizations and private sector partners, and understanding what are their most core strategic systemic cybersecurity challenges that we can help them to solve in terms and framework of the public-private partnership. As you may know, World Economic Forum is an international organization for public-private cooperation, and that is actually what we've been focusing for the last 50 plus years, is improving the dialogue and providing that platform for public and private sector leaders to meet. And in this regard, the World Economic Forum actually has been working and trying to solve the cybersecurity challenges on a global scale, I would say for around a decade or so. And then 3 or so years ago in Davos, Switzerland, in our annual meeting, they actually announced the establishment of the Center for Cybersecurity. And we are very happy to have around 100 partner organizations, and including 6 of our founding partners: Accenture, Fortinet, Palo Alto Networks, Salesforce, Saudi Aramco, and Sberbank. So as you can see, it's a wide variety of industry, really diverse portfolio even in founding partners. And that gives us a very good perspective of what are the core challenges that we need to focus on and work with our community. I think the interesting part about the World Economic Forum and the Center for Cybersecurity, and at least what attracted my attention here, is the independence and impartiality to provide this global platform for really all different players in the cybersecurity field. Switzerland, as you know, is neutral country for longer than 200, than a couple of hundred of years. So it's a perfect place for us to be situated. As I mentioned already, we focus on bringing public and private sector leaders together to collaborate. And our goal here is to bridge the gap between decision makers and cybersecurity experts. As you know, when you are in cybersecurity domain, everything seems very visible, very clear, but actually when you need to translate those technical challenges to business risk, to political risks, that's where we step in bridging that communication, and providing that platform for tech to be interpreted into the actual global risk and business risk.
Is it policy orientated, as you say, sort of influencing the decision makers? Are you guiding them on policy and sort of making sure everyone's sort of singing from the same hymn sheet? Is that kind of where you would be coming from?
Yes and no. So policy is one of our, core backbone, if you may. So the dialogues that happen at the World Economic Forum and the Center for Cybersecurity, the hope is that it will become either into private partner-led initiative or public partner-led initiative.
Right.
So to move the needle, that's the end goal. And on that, we focus in two domains. One is how do we improve cyber resilience in public and private sector? So, skill set gap, you name it. Calculations and metrics for cyber risk, understanding and framing it. And on the other hand, we are looking into upcoming new technologies. AI, machine learning, quantum, cloud, not so new, but still, what are the challenges? And how those technologies will be shaping the future of cybersecurity into terms. One, from offense, how will hacking be changing when you apply AI, when you apply machine learning? How quantum will be, basically diminishing our security by not allowing us to encrypt anymore the way we are encrypting right now? And how should we be meeting those challenges on the other hand? And how should we be rethinking defense in terms of new technologies?
Well, I suppose the reason I reached out was based on following the cyber attack on the Florida water treatment plant, and it's not a unique scenario, and we saw some of this similar activity in Israel last year. So there's a couple of questions there. Is the trends that you're seeing, and also the World Economic Forum Global Risk Report. So it's not like this was not. I think cybersecurity is number 4 on that list this year, and it's always been at that top sort of level. What are the trends? Because from what I see, things certainly aren't getting any better. We're also off the back of the SolarWinds supply chain attack, and we're yet to fully understand the outcomes of that as well. And there's a lot of dialogue in this space as well. What are those key trends that you're observing, and those vulnerabilities that may be not getting fixed or not changing fast enough?
Well, maybe rather not changing fast enough, as you know, especially when it comes to critical infrastructure, because we have so much, old infrastructure that has been put in place, many years ago, and that legacy system is very challenging to update and very expensive to maintain. I think two observations that I have seen in the last couple of weeks in the framework of the Florida water management attack. One is we are only as strong as our weakest link is, and as everything is becoming digital, and as this digitalization is actually blurring the line between our physical and digital domains. The ecosystem is only as secure as any of the connected weakest points. So we definitely need to focus on securing those, on rethinking what legacy systems we want to keep, what legacy systems we want to replace, and then budget items of how we're going to find that money. That is one observation. Second one would be, and that is more on a societal level, if I may. Cybersecurity attacks on utility companies, cybersecurity attacks on any physical thing, okay, automobile, airplane, ship, water management system, actually brings people's or catches people's attention, because suddenly from this hypothetical cybersecurity breach, where normally we are so used to see like, oh, well, another personal identifiable data was leaked. Okay, so what? This brings actually very real fear, if you may, because suddenly our physical environment, our physical safety and health standards are being threatened. And I think that's why it's catching the attention of people. It has a potential to go viral, because suddenly it's very near and dear to me. I drink water every day. You drink water every day. What does that mean? What does that mean for us as a society when we are connecting everything?
Well, and we touched on it sort of pre-interview or during that discussion, is cybersecurity touches everything. That's why we have a very broad sort of domain that we cover, but cybersecurity keeps coming up again and again. How does the Centre for Cybersecurity fit in with the other work that the World Economic Forum is doing, and then also the link between cybersecurity and economics itself? And I know if you know Michelle Price as well as I do, she definitely talks about digital economy and the importance of cybersecurity in terms of the economy. So where does the Centre for Cybersecurity fit into the other work that the World Economic Forum is doing?
So, Center has been established for the last 3 years. Cybersecurity work in the World Economic Forum has been ongoing for a decade. So in different shape or form, the World Economic Forum had a say, and partners had a platform to discuss these challenges. And that makes me, very relieved when the center has been established. They built a really strong team. A broad spectrum of experts have been brought in, and then we kind of centralized our work. But at the same time, cybersecurity is like octopus. If you take the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, that is based in San Francisco, actually we are working very closely with our teammates in San Francisco, because there they think of design of products, of the future of principles of AI, of machine learning, of quantum ethics. And cybersecurity and security features and principles have to be inserted from the very beginning of it. I personally led a project for almost a couple of years with the investment community here at the World Economic Forum. And we actually looked into at which point, at which stage, technology could be secured from the get-go. Where is that leverage point that we could identify besides the government? What are the market incentives we could be using? And that's where we identified, big financial players like Standards and Poor's, for example, that set standard, that set ratings, that provide this understanding of the global ecosystem. Actually, how should they incorporate cybersecurity risk in their, analysis? We worked closely with financial sector institutions and with technology developers and providers like Salesforce, Microsoft, Cloudflare, Bank of America. So, big buyers or big investors and developers. And we have developed a cybersecurity due diligence framework that actually allows investors to look into their portfolio companies on twofold. One, of the company's cybersecurity health, and secondly, on the product, on technology that they are developing, cybersecurity health. Because very frankly, if you do not get principles like security by design, security by default, privacy by default, privacy by design, embedded into the product design and development, you know very well, Chris, to stack them on top is more expensive, takes more time, and it's actually much more challenging. So in this work, we actually were very happy to see and bring the community together to help them think through the cyber risk, how to incorporate it, how to calculate it, and what are the important measures to consider. And work like that with different communities. So not only the cyber experts, but actually spreading the word of the importance of cybersecurity. I think that is where the main success of the World Economic Forum is. How do you engage decision makers, executives, on thinking through the long-term prism? Like if you develop an airport and you are, that big pension fund or sovereign fund, and you know that the airport that you're investing to will be operating for the next 20, 30 years. How do you secure when you actually don't even, we cannot comprehend how technology will be changing our lives in 10 years. So how, what are the frameworks to think about potential attack surfaces? And these are the incredible dialogues that we have. And that's why I love being here.
I think one of the other things, as you were saying, that is, do you find that there's a 2, even a 3-tier sort of system of technology at the moment. We've got 5G, IoT, you mentioned that at the start in terms of what you're looking at, AI, and we're trying to embed that security by design, privacy by design. In fact, I'll mention Julie Inman-Grant. She's talking safety by design for things like kids and public safety.
Yep.
And it almost has come back into that critical infrastructure. So the new tech is kind of coming through, hopefully with some of that inbuilt. But then we have this legacy infrastructure that it's going to take, I don't know, 20, 30, 50 years to see it through, and then it's managing those risks along the way. And we're almost seeing it a little bit, say, with climate change and renewables coming through, and that renewable tech sort of is following that similar roadmap. Is that where you see strategically around the world that we have to manage on an ongoing basis? We didn't design these systems to be secure in the first place, so we can't make them secure now, and we just have to sort of phase them out over time?
In a perfect world, yes. In a world where budgets potentially might get cut in the near future, looking at the global economy, which is doing all right. It's doing better than we expected.
Yeah.
But we don't know what potentially could cripple it. Hopefully nothing, but we always need to be ready. And I think a lot of decision makers on government levels and on business levels are actually very aware. Now, to answer your question, I think it's very fitting to mention the COVID-19 crisis that we are still undergoing. I know in Australia, you've been managing that pretty well, but it's also very difficult to enter your country, and you're very far away, so it's much easier.
Yeah.
When you're mishmash in Europe or in the Americas, it's much more difficult to actually completely shut down borders. So this will be continuing on. Now, there is opportunity in every crisis. And at least in cybersecurity, I definitely see that this was a massive opportunity for cybersecurity executives. At first, budgets were massively cut. But then because a lot of boards and C-suite realized that suddenly we are so dependent on all our digital infrastructure. And I remember back in March and April last year, we were joking around that every organization had a 5-year digitalization plan that they had to implement in 2 weeks. And I think that's where cybersecurity had a chance and still has a chance to catch up. Now, twofold pain points that we see exactly what you said: new technologies and security in them, how we're going to embed them, and then the legacy systems. Legacy systems to public and private sector actually cost currently around 80% of their technology budget spending just to maintain and secure them. 80%. So that means only 20% of budget is allowed for new tech rollouts, for product developments, for those security features to come in. From that perspective, I think the features or the principles that will be standing out in the next couple of years, and from what I see and what our experts observe, are two. One is defense in depth, and then the zero trust. How do we ensure multiple layers of security, that we use them in a manner, in an efficient manner, to actually safeguard our assets? That will be the core, especially when we consider the legacy systems. And then zero trust, how do we ensure that every single item that tries to connect to our network is verified and we do not trust them? So those two, I think, will be the leading security features until we will kind of phase out. And in every country will be different. In every organization will be different, the phase out, depending on budgets, depending on their workforce, digitalization, and skill set, actually how much they can, they will be upskilled, and that's a great opportunity. So from that perspective, whenever I meet anyone, I immediately suggest them to join cybersecurity, because the opportunities are endless, globally and locally.
Well, there's two parts, and I'm conscious of time as well to finish off. One is sort of the international government standards and sort of what type of structure should a government have? And here in Australia, we've got an Australian cybersecurity strategy, so we have a clear strategy. We've even got a sort of foreign engagement strategy for cybersecurity. We have Australian Cybersecurity Centre, and we did some interviews, say, with Israel as well. Very similar kind of structure. Is that something that sort of most leading countries should have now and do have, or do you still think that that's part in development? And one of the key questions we had here in Australia, we used to have a minister for cybersecurity, and we lost that. So there was a question there around. There was a bit of a change there in the US on this as well. How high should cybersecurity be at a ministerial level in a government, certainly a liberal democracy, to make sure that it's being considered appropriately?
I think from the observation and from digitalization point of view, any country that is looking into getting or improving their digitalization, so any country that has undertaken or is planning to undertake their digitalization, has to consider cybersecurity from the get-go, from multiple folds, to prepare for any potential attacks, to protect their critical infrastructure, to prepare their workforce, to engage their students, their youth, to actually choose a path of cybersecurity, and then to ensure that they really foster that dialogue between public and private sector. Almost all of our networks that we connect to, that we use every day, are in private sector's hands. All the regulation that is globally anywhere is actually done by public sector. Now, if those two do not connect, do not talk to each other, we're not going to achieve security.
Or we get a situation like we did with Facebook here, where Facebook turned off and you have a disagreement, but they're talking again today. But it is a good example that public and private coming to loggerheads.
Exactly. So to avoid situations like that, actually that early conversations, early stakeholder management, I think that should be really at the heart of any government official that has a cybersecurity portfolio. Let it be minister, secretary, director general, whatever the name or a title is. I think the core responsibility is actually to build those bridges and to really focus on public-private collaboration, and at the same time to not forget international and regional cooperation. Hackers do not think, well, I sit in country X, so this is only place I will hack. Oh, no. That doesn't work like that. And they do not follow any jurisdictions, any laws. They don't have to. While if you are on the bright side, on the good side of cybersecurity, you're quite limited with how much jurisprudence is allowing you to do and maneuver. So that's why that dialogue, understanding those pain points that private sector is facing, at the same time the challenges that public sector sees every day, and how private sector with its innovation, with R&D could help sort it out, is literally at the heart of solving strategic systemic cybersecurity challenges globally, regionally, and nationally.
It's a lovely way to finish. I'm again conscious of the time. What I suppose, just to finish, a sort of a final sort of curly question. We could touch on skills and skills development, but that's a big topic. But what's your kind of predictions for sort of the next couple of years, 2021 through to 2022, on the back of these types of attacks, solar winds, water treatment plants and critical infrastructure? It's not even a new normal. It's just normal as usual. We will continue to see attacks, and we just have to keep getting the message out there for both public awareness, but also the policy makers and decision makers.
I think if there's one prediction that I can make, and it tends to be very optimistic, so bear that in mind. I think 2020 was an incredible year for cybersecurity actually to be elevated to a strategic level discussion, from a technical matter to actually grasp attention of decision makers on public and private sector. I strongly believe that attacks that you mentioned, supply chain attack like SolarWinds, utility, critical infrastructure attacks, and everyday, awareness and connectivity on anything that you touch. We'll continue elevating cybersecurity into the strategic dialogue on country level and on organizational leadership level. And I told you, it's an optimistic point of view. Now, don't make no mistake that hackers are definitely doing the same. They are getting organized. There are proofs already that you see really patterns of hacking activities, especially from organized groups where they connect from 9 to 5, taking 1 hour break. That means they are becoming, corporized, if you may. They take Christmas breaks. They take other kinds of breaks. So it's becoming, a real industry. It's organized crime combined is third largest economy after United States and China. So it's not going to go anywhere. Criminals will be elevating their game as they were doing in past years, and they will continue applying new technologies. But at the same time, I think our eternal connectivity, this blurring line between physical and digital, will really allow us to elevate cybersecurity on a different level discussion. At least that would be my hope, and it seems to be an observation looking into last year.
Very good. Look, it's always good to be optimistic. I'm an optimistic pessimist often, so I'm not too sure how it works. But look, I really do appreciate your time. I know I appreciate half an hour isn't very long either to discuss something like this on this level. But regardless, it's great to sort of touch base with you. It's great to hear Michelle Price's name as well mentioned, because obviously she was there, I think, at Davos this year, right? Or the GA?
She was at Davos. She was on our annual meeting on cybersecurity. She is... Yeah. We are holding her hand, she's holding our hand. So it's great to be friends with Australia, that's for sure.
Very good. And it's good to know that Australia had a seat at the table as well. So look, and apologies if I'm not getting your name right. I'm going to give it another crack. Algirde Pipakate.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Chris.
And you're just being nice.
Have a good evening, I guess. It's evening for you, yes?
You're the lead strategic initiative, Centre for Cybersecurity with the World Economic Forum. Lovely to meet you, and I'll let you enjoy your day.
Lovely meeting you too.
Thanks,
Take care.
I'll put you backstage.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.